Welcome to the weekly teaching tips series. My name is Christina Moore from the Center for Excellence in Teaching and Learning at Oakland University. Every Monday, we publish a new teaching tip on our blog, which is at oakland.edu/teaching tips. And this is a very special video addition to the series. So today I'm talking with Annie Hegedus, who is an academic advisor at the College of Arts and Sciences. So this came up because Annie and I email from time to time. And one time I noticed in her e-signature with her email that she had a hyperlinked phrase that said virtual office and an invitation to click on present to explore her virtual office. So I did exactly that. I had a lot of fun, and I saw in this a great application for just about anyone, but specifically I was thinking about a virtual office for our instructors and faculty. So I asked Annie to stop by and share some of the ins and outs of this idea, show us around her virtual office and anything else surrounding the creation and then we'll have a conversation about how this can apply to from the professor and student side of things. So I'll let you take us for a tour, Annie.
All right, well, thanks, Christina. So this kind of all started during the early stages of the pandemic. So I'm in an advisor group for our national organization, the National Association of Academic Advising, NACADA. And we have some different Facebook groups and things where we were sharing ideas of how we really miss like being in person with our students and interacting with them. And so much of the stuff that comes from like, a student seeing a Marvel figure in my office and us chatting about Marvel movies for 5 minutes before we jump into their classes. So we just miss that. So somebody presented this idea of building your own virtual office or virtual classroom. So I'll share kind of the tutorial that we had been starting with. So this was a really good tutorial that someone had shared from that group. Stephanie Harris is an English educator. I believe she's done both like K-12 and higher education, but she created this really great tutorial that I won't run all the way through, but I'll make sure Christina gets the link to. So it talks about like setting up your background and adding a Bitmoji to it, your little person. And it was really fun. So I decided to play around with it. Like I was saying, it was kind of like a Friday night during the pandemic, can't go anywhere. So I just started playing around, and I'm not a technical person, but it was super fun. So this is what my virtual office looks like currently. I thought it was pretty exciting to kind of like, pick out furniture that I would have in my dream office, or, little things to kind of talk about who I am as a person outside of just our advising interactions. So I will open up this one. So you can either, when you do this, you can either let students come here and just have view access and present it as a slideshow, which is what I usually do, or you can publish it to the web. So you could even, put this link in other places if you have other spaces where you want students to be able to access it. I try to keep it a mix though of like on our welcome sign here, I've got our advising information, just general info about our office. Some of the like different campus services, like the recreation, career services, some of those kinds of things, going through and linking to those so students can find them in maybe like a fun way, which is, I just think it's a little more interesting for them to explore this space than me just sending them, here's how you find career services website. So that's been really fun. And then I think that the resources are really helpful, but I also like the ability to be able to say, oh, and like, here's some more stuff about me outside of work. Like you can see my 2 dogs just chilling in my office with me, because that's what it looked like when I was working from home most of the time. They were just hanging out in the office with me. Some of the books that I've read recently, I just started linking to those on here. So if you click on it, a student can see like what I've been reading lately, and a website that I really like, the Storygraph app. I think that's a really cool thing that students might not know about, so they can kind of even explore that indirectly. Some of them are just kind of silly, like I like Spider-Man a lot. My son likes Spider-Man a lot. So I've got like, this is going to go to a commercial, but it's the Spider-Man theme. It links to that. So it's just kind of stuff to let students know that we're humans as advisors, or even as faculty, like letting them see you outside of the classroom. Um, One other one that I really like, this compliment generator from Leslie Knope. So if you throw your name in here, you can get a compliment. And it'll give you a compliment from Leslie Knope from Parks and Rec. So Parks and Rec is one of my favorite shows. So I think that's another thing that students and I like in the past would bond about, but when they're not coming into my office, they don't necessarily see that. So this was just one more avenue for them to kind of see what that looks like. The other thing I really love about it is that I can change it up as much as I want. So if, I just added my bookshelf yesterday, so I can change this and put more resources there, or I can change it if we have an event going on, I can throw that poster up right here or something like that. But it's just kind of a nice way for students to get the information in a little bit different way and show them that even though I'm not like really young and hip necessarily, like it kind of is a little bit more speaking that like Gen Z language.
Yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned the Parks and Rec connection and talking about offices and how we might not always be able to see things, because I did notice when we got on the call that you had a Pawnee poster in the back of your real office.
Exactly.
So, it's nice when I did notice that without us explicitly talking about your actual office, which I don't see all the time, but with your virtual office, there's another way that you can communicate that. So it worked in both ways, which is kind of the dream.
And some of us were kind of saying too, in this advising group, like at the start of the pandemic, we spent so much time in our offices that like good or not, they kind of become this little like extension of ourselves anyway. And a lot of us were missing our little offices and, the decorations that got on the walls, and people had left their little, Funko Pops at the office because they thought they'd be gone for a couple of weeks at the start of the pandemic. And then they were away from their office for a year and a half. So it's a nice thing for us too, to kind of get to be creative and explore some ideas and feel a little bit connected to our office even when we were away.
So there were a few things I thought of while you were talking now and when I first did exploring on my own. And on the thread of what we're talking about now, as far as the places where we work and how they become expressions of ourselves. I mean, for one, our workplaces have kind of multiplied in some cases, because we might have an on-campus place where we work and an office at home. And now students are seeing both of those more than they probably did in the past. But I do also think of the situation that some part-time faculty are in where they do not have either an office at all, or they have a shared office space, so they're a bit limited on how they can customize it. So it's nice to have this virtual presence that, like you said, is like our fantasy for, how clean it is and how many different things it has and all the furniture that we can't afford to buy. So it becomes this really fun and exciting, place to generate that is still communicating all this information in a fun way.
Yeah.
And I also think about, really, what you've presented here, I think clearly shows has the same opportunities and connections for faculty and students. The first thing I think about is the syllabus. We tend to have a lot of policies in our syllabi, which are good because we don't know what information students need and we want to be consistent on what we offer. But obviously it starts to read like a contract when it gets to be very long. So I see this as another way to emphasize and communicate in a different way some of those things. Like you have the calendar, folks could link to I think it does link, yours links to the academic calendar.
Yeah, right? It links to just the registrar's office. Yep.
So I could see faculty doing exactly the same thing, or it might be the course schedule section of the syllabus to remind us of when those due dates are. You linked to different things that you probably talk with students about as far as advising. I could see some of these linking to different student organizations that are related to the class content, or travel abroad or study abroad or something like that. So I think, and then even looking at like the rec center, if you happen to always be on the exercise bikes, you might have a bike in the background, and it also links to the rec center. So I think it's a way to have that teacher presence, really, whether you teach on campus or online or a mix of both, But just another way to emphasize who you are and how it connects with the class and how it just has that relationship building. But it also allows you to communicate some of the extras. And I love that you have a little family picture on the desk. I'll just say that.
Yeah, I try to, again, I think a lot of it comes back to humanizing us as advisors or as faculty, whoever is designing one, just kind of showing like, sometimes there's that power dynamic, especially I think as a student coming into either an advising space or into a classroom and they feel like, okay, I can't approach this person, they're in charge. But really, if you kind of, you humanize yourself a little bit, you show like, this is my family, these are my dogs, these are books I like or pop culture things that I like. I think it opens the door to some of those connections. And then the other thing too that I hadn't clicked on quite yet, but so I tried to sort of link some of these like mental health, like the counseling center and the food pantry, just to kind of embed those in here too, because those are things that I know students aren't always comfortable asking for or asking for referrals to. But a lot of our students could benefit from those. So kind of just throwing those in here as like, these are other campus resources, normalizing it. These are just part of the resources we offer. You should use them. I think that's a good way to sort of like sneak that information in without a student having to necessarily directly ask.
And you could always, first week of class or periodically kind of use this as a starting point to, give people reminders or just kind of click through things so that people remember that it's there. And you're kind of using this fun thing to like remind people of the schedule or remind students of the resources available to them. So I could see this being brought up in an instructional video or, during an actual class session.
Yeah, I think so.
So the last, the last thing we'll touch on and I'll ask you is what tips you would have if a faculty member sees this, really likes this, and wants to get started. I mean, it may be clear to some, but Google Slides is being used here to create this. So tips on getting started. Did you start from a blank slate? Did you start with something else?
Yeah.
How was your process?
Yeah, so I started really from a completely blank slide. And this tutorial, I'll kind of go into it just a little bit because I think that it was really helpful, is like starting with this very blank slide here. And then you can choose a background color for your walls. And then they kind of show how to search for flooring and things like that. I think when I first saw the idea, I felt a little bit overwhelmed by it because I'm not a particularly technologically savvy person. So I was like, oh, this is really cool that they did that, but I don't know if I could do it. And then once I started going through this tutorial and breaking it down, like choosing my background color, choosing my flooring, and then saving the background, and kind of going through and putting my little person in there and deciding what I wanted her to be doing, and then looking for furniture. Pretty soon I was caught up in the fun of it all and kind of like the fantasy of, oh, this amazing desk. Like I could have this really cool desk and I could have this amazing bookshelf. And yeah, there's no clutter in the office. It's all organized. So I think my biggest piece of advice would be to, whether you feel like you're, particularly skilled in this area or not, once you get started with it, it's actually really fun and pretty easy. So just, I would say, try not to be intimidated by it. And if you can, kind of just think about what your ideal office would look like, whether that matches reality or not. I think that it's this guide, and there's lots of other video guides and things out there too online if you search for Google Slide Classroom or Google Slide Office. But there's so much help out there available that it really is more like a fun, creative process than anything else.
Great. Yeah. And these resources will be on the blog component where this video will be posted as well. If you want to check out some of these resources that Annie is referring to. And I mean, Annie was saying that she just made some changes recently to this. So there's really no timeline, due date to this, unless you want to make it available by a certain semester. But you can always make it plain and add to it. And I mean, I think the point here is also to remember to have some fun, because this has been a hard time, and we need about as much fun as we can get. And of course, it helps if we are getting some good benefits along the way. So Annie, thanks so much for stopping by, talking with us, showing us through these things. I think some people are going to be excited about it, and they'll probably add it to their syllabus too. I could see, adding a link to your virtual office inside of the syllabus. So yes, for the blog post version of this teaching tip, you can go to oakland.edu/teaching tips. This and many other good things are there. So thanks again, and thanks everyone for stopping by.
Thanks, Christina.